St. Pauli, home of punks, protests, and overpriced gin tonics. But to understand this place, we're starting here, at a Nazi-era bunker turned into an eco-skyscraper. More on YouTube.
This concrete monster, that's the Flakturm 4, a massive World War II anti-aircraft tower built by the Nazis in 1942. Its job was to shoot Allied planes out of the sky and shield tens of thousands of people from bombs below. Back then, it was a fortress of war, impenetrable, indestructible. And that's not just a figure of speech. In 1947, the British actually planned to blow it up, until they realized it would take at least 40 tons of TNT and probably destroy half the surrounding neighborhood, including downtown Hamburg, just 2 kilometers away. So the bunker stayed, too massive to remove. But what do you do with a leftover war bunker? Well, in the post-war years, it became a home, a cold, cramped but crucial one. Hamburg was in ruins and people needed a roof. By the early 50s, part of the bunker was used as an emergency shelter for women and children who had fled domestic violence. Each family got a tiny cell, just a bed, a table and a chair. Meals came from down the hall. Not exactly cozy, but safe. Then came the Cold War, and just like that, the tower was back in business, reactivated as a civil defense shelter in case things with the Soviets went sideways. Spoiler, they didn't. So eventually, the bunker was left standing, empty, waiting, until the 1990s, when someone had a radical idea. What if we stopped treating it like a ruin and started treating it like a space? The bunker was sold and turned into a media center. And suddenly, this brutalist relic became one of Hamburg's most creative addresses. A club, a concert hall, recording studios. Names like Übel und Gefährlich and Resonanzraum moved in. It became a place for sound and light, inside walls built for silence and darkness. But the real twist came just a few years ago with the latest chapter, the Grüner Bunker. 5 new stories were added on top, wrapped in a vertical park with nearly 5,000 plants. There's now a hotel up there, event spaces, even a public rooftop garden with one of the best panoramic views in Hamburg, if you're willing to take the stairs. And yeah, sure, some call it gentrification, and maybe it is, but it's also bold transformation. From fortress to forest, from trauma to terrace. And maybe that's the most honest thing you can do with a place like this. Not erase the past, but plant something on top of it. Admittedly, Hamburg doesn't have the funkiest skyline, but you still get some nice views from up here.
And just across the street, we enter the Karo-Viertel, or Karolinenviertel. Now, when I was first in this area in the late 80s, shown around by my cousin, every other house had squatters in them. One of them was my cousin. Now, some of them might still be here, but they drive electric cars now.
So, welcome to the Karo-Viertel, or Karolinenviertel if you're feeling formal. This little patch of Hamburg has always punched above its weight. What started as working-class housing in the 19th century turned into a hotbed of counterculture by the late 20th. Squats, punk gigs, anti-fascist posters in the windows. For years, this was one of Hamburg's most outspoken alt-left strongholds. And even today, you'll still spot the murals, the political stickers, and a stubborn sense of resistance baked into the bricks. But of course, the irony. All that edgy charm made it ripe for gentrification. Cafes moved in, design boutiques popped up, and real estate prices shot through the roof. You can get a vegan dinner here that'll cost you more than a steak in Wilhelmsburg. Karo-Viertel today is a bit of a paradox. A neighborhood that wants to stay punk, but can't ignore the pull of property developers. Still, if you scratch the surface, that rebel spirit's still there, just layered under some expensive oat milk foam.
Schanzenviertel. This has for a very long time been one of the most turbulent neighborhoods in Hamburg. I used to live here from 1999 to 2004, and every night police were chasing drug dealers down the street. At the same time, this was where all the early .com online portals, online platforms had their offices. I used to work for one of them.
So this is the Schanzenviertel, the beating, buzzing, chaotic heart of Hamburg's alternative scene. At the center of it all, the Rote Flora, a self-managed cultural and political center squatted since 1989, standing proud like a clenched fist against gentrification, capitalism, and authority in general. You will still find banners, protests, and meetings happening here. Resistance that refuses to be tamed. And yet, just across the street, MacBook freelancers nursing flat whites on reclaimed wood tables, posting TikToks about authentic Hamburg vibes. This is the paradox of the Schanze. And somehow, all of it lives side by side, uneasy but alive. The Schanzenviertel, or simply Die Schanze, has always been a bit unruly and proud of it. It started off as a classic working-class neighborhood in the 19th century, just outside the old limits of Hamburg. Back then, it was full of small workshops, warehouses, and dense housing for dock workers and craftsmen. After World War II, the area became a refuge for immigrants and outsiders. Cheap rents, scruffy charm, and a tight-knit feel. In the 70s and 80s, the neighborhood began attracting leftists, punks, squatters, and artists, many of them drawn by the growing autonomen and countercultural scenes. Rote Flora, originally a theater, was occupied in 1989 after the city planned to turn it into a musical venue. Locals said, "Hell no," and kept it. From there, the Schanze became one of Hamburg's key protest zones. Anti-gentrification rallies, squatter demos, and later, massive G20 protests. But of course, irony has no brakes, because the very rebellion and rawness that made the Schanze cool also made it desirable. By the 2000s, the hipness creep had fully set in. Bars popped up where bakeries used to be. Organic food shops and co-working spaces replaced dusty garages. Today, you are just as likely to hear startup pitch decks in the cafes as you are to spot flyers for anti-fascist film nights. But the tension, it's still there. The Schanze is no longer as poor as it was, but it's still political, still unpredictable, still a bit loud and proud and messy.
Still raining, but not as hard. Okay, we are walking down from Schanzenviertel to downtown St. Pauli to the Reeperbahn. And we are taking the street, we're walking down the street that connects them directly. Wohlwillstraße. It's even been sung about by a Swedish band.
Now this is Wohlwillstraße. Not a postcard street, but that's exactly why I love it. It's rough around the edges, full of old bars, artist studios, political stickers, and second-hand stores. Everything here says, we were here before the real estate agents showed up. You'll find punk kids, longtime locals, and expats with a bike and a tote bag. all sharing the same uneven pavement. It's the kind of street where conversations spill out of bars and into the night, and where the graffiti probably has stronger opinions than most politicians.
So this little street here will turn into something else entirely after just a few more meters. This is the beginning of central St. Pauli, the nightlife and red light district. So this is the neighborhood closest to the harbor, where seamen far from home would come for one night of entertainment before embarking out to sea again. So this is where the brothels open up.
But not just brothels. This is the club where the Beatles first played under that name. The name of the street, Große Freiheit, Great Freedom, is fitting in all the wrong and right ways. Yes, there's sex work, and yes, there's kitsch. But the street has always been about pushing boundaries, musically, culturally, morally. There is the Kaiserkeller, where the Beatles basically became a band. Long nights, loud amps, lots of beer, and even more attitude. Hamburg shaped them before they shaped the world. And that's the contradiction right here. You've got music history next to erotic theaters, next to cheap currywurst joints. It's raw, loud, unapologetic, and it kind of works. These days, there's less rock and roll and more tourist drag. But if you squint past the LED lights, you can still catch a glimpse of what made the street legendary. Freedom, chaos, and the promise of a night you might regret, but you won't forget.
And I think of all of Hamburg's tourist attractions, this is the lamest.
And we are on the Reeperbahn, St. Pauli's main artery. It's quiet on a Monday afternoon. Saturday night, absolutely packed. Sure, the Reeperbahn is famous for sex and scandal, but it's also one of Germany's richest cultural streets. You've got theaters like Schmidt's Tivoli and St. Pauli Theater doing everything from sharp political cabaret to full-blown musicals. Legendary clubs like Molotov, Docs and Große Freiheit 36 have hosted everyone from DIY punks to future megastars. And once a year, it all explodes into the Reeperbahn Festival, Europe's biggest club festival with over 400 concerts, art shows, film screenings and industry panels. This street is where a gallery can sit right next to a strip club. And somehow, that makes perfect sense. That's the Reeperbahn, raw, weird, and wildly alive. And maybe nothing shows the contradiction that is St. Pauli better than this. This is Hamburg's busiest police station, the Davidwache. And right across the street, outside Burger King, is where at 8 p.m. flat, the sex workers will line up. And up there, where the Reeperbahn bends towards the city again, the Tanzende Türme, the dancing towers, are doing their thing. They contain offices, a restaurant and a music club. Built in 2012, they're all sharp angles and elegance, meant to look like a couple mid-tango. It's a flashy bit of architecture, but somehow it fits. Down below, neon, noise, contradictions. Up there, a sign that even chaos can find rhythm. That's St. Pauli, that's Hamburg, and that's our walk.
And that concludes our walk for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I see you next week. And I hope you subscribe to my channel. Take care for now.